This podcast is powered by The Plug.
Ooh-wee. Hi, y'all. I'm Dani, baby. Living vicariously through myself. All right, how we doing, y'all? How is your spirit? For real, like sit with that. How is it? And then answer it. You're not crazy for answering that question. Any old way, it's me, Dani, baby. I'm coming at you live. Well, if you hear this later, it's not live. This is the moment right now. Welcome to my brain. Any old way. Last time we kind of touched base on living vicariously through myself, and we're just going to keep venturing down that path. And so I have my lovely, beautiful Lou here by my side today. She gonna say something, ain't you? Oh, we just having some beautiful moments this morning, just understanding that we came to this space after all this time, all these years that we've known each other, and we're sitting in this studio right now with the Plug podcast, and this is just like very surreal. So let's just dive into this a little bit. I'm going to talk about some platonic intimacy. I know that one of the number one things that I love talking about is relationships. You know, the relationships, first of all, that we have with ourselves, with our community, our families, you know, our biological family, to our chosen and soul family, to the relationship we have with ourselves, and then also bringing in a partner and what a partnership looks like and what all these labels are around it. And then at the same token, you have all of these genders. We have gender expression, and we have gender identity. We have sexual expression and sexual identity. We just have all these fun little spaces of relationship to explore. So this is just going to be one of those. We're going to be chatting all about it. So I'm going to rewind a little bit. About 15 years ago is when I first started hanging around this young one next to me, who first time I actually met Lou, she was selling lemonade outside of the old Gypsy House. If you know Denver, Gypsy House has been one of the core pillars of community for me. And they really have no idea how much I have enjoyed getting to grow with them. But back in the day, about 15 years ago, I walked into Gypsy. I purchased some lemonade from Lou, and we were young and in different spaces at that time. And so because of, you know, just the dynamic of what community was at that moment, I was just really doing a lot of observing. I didn't know where I fit in. I was in some rough romantic relationship spaces. I was trying to find my footing. I didn't have my biological family, you know, supporting me in any way. And I was just trying to navigate the best that I could. And then I walked into Gypsy House and I just felt peaceful. I felt very like at ease. And I know, Lou, you have always seen me. I've always seen you. And there was just a space back then that like I really wanted to be friends then, but we just weren't ready for each other. It wasn't time, you know. And so being in these spaces now where we're ready, you know, I'm sure that y'all have experienced a space where, you know, there was a relationship and we sometimes think like, oh, you know, it was the right person, wrong time or something like that. And I think looking at that and analyzing, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for what this friendship was going to bring about, and really this platonic intimacy. And so all these years later, like I had moved a state away and then come back. I literally moved back on your opening day at the new location and got to hang out with you all at the new location. And so the past couple of years, especially this year, has just been phenomenal getting to know you, Lou, as the person, just the individual that you are within the community, the pillar that you are even outside of your mom and your auntie being the owner and your grandma working there in this beautiful business. And it's not just about it being a business. It's a place of solitude, a place where you can actually rest and feel your own self being loved and accepted. It's very wild when you enter it. So anyway, just getting to witness Lou growing into these spaces. I know that you witnessed that. And then this summer we were like, you know what?
It was on and popping. there was no holding back.
Yeah. And it was like, I don't know. We just started like, hey, can we hang out? Let's do this. Let's do this. And as we were hanging out, like we didn't know how to define our relationship, because people like to put a label on it because they don't understand how two people can enjoy each other's company, but not be having sex. And funny thing is right now, too, Lou has her partner here sitting in on this conversation, and he's been witnessing our relationship. They're in a romantic bond, and we, too, are in a romantic bond in the sense that we have this beautiful honor of each other and understanding, like, the different pillars, again, I'm going to keep saying that, of how we get to show up in each other's lives. And so my whole belief is that, like, one person shouldn't be your everything. Growing up in purity culture and growing up in just the misogynistic way that we did, it was like women, I do not identify as a woman, but women, you do this for your mans or you do this for your community and, yada, yada. And so we just have this, like, there was just this perception that one person is your everything. And so moving into this friendship where I always desired platonic intimacy because I would enter into romantic love bonds that I had no business being in because I wanted to experience human connection and human touch.
Right.
And I thought that was the only way I could do it. And then I was like, there's got to be a group of people out here because I don't really know that I'm like, am I monogamous? Am I polyamorous? Like platonic? I don't know what any of this is. And so we literally got to explore that. And I just want to know, like, from your standpoint, what that platonic intimacy has felt like for you, or if that's how you identify it. Maybe it's a different word for you.
I think, well, I don't know why we have to say platonic intimacy. I think it's just a different form of intimacy. And I think, like, going back on what you said as far as needs, like, in order to enter different spaces and enter different intimacies with different people, you have to understand what your needs are. That's like the first thing that you have to lay out. Like, if your needs right now in this present moment is just sex, then of course you're not going to enter like a platonic intimate space. You're going to enter a space where it's invoking just sex. Or like, if your needs are, I need to like come to a coffee shop and sit down and joke around and touch tentacles with someone, but then I need to like go back home and make out with someone and tell them how good they make me feel, then you can separate your needs from there, But I've enjoyed our space that we're in. I consider you more to be like family. And I fall more and more in love with you every day. There's never like any awkward spaces or anything. I feel like even when we're awkward, we're just like, today's an awkward day. Let's be awkward.
And we root that on.
We do.
Full.
We do.
We don't play games with it. I want all those sides of ourselves to come out and see. I think we've had such an identity crisis in certain instances because the younger generation, they don't give a fuck, honestly.
Agreed.
They're just like, I'm going to give you respect. You're going to give me respect. You tell me what you want to be called. I'll call you that. And that's that. They're not sitting there arguing. They are like absolutely understanding that people are just in their fluid space and they let them be. Whereas our generation and even the one above us, we're just seeing like, oh my gosh, we think that this stuff is so awkward to have these kind of intimacies and these kind of friendships. Like, for instance, I grew up with very emotionally unavailable parents, and their emotional intelligence is still like, it's boundaries all the time that I have to work through because I'm trying to heal parts of myself. And when I'm healing, I'm gaining a great perspective about my parents, but I'm the one doing all the growing and healing. And in order for them to maintain a relationship with me, they need to do the same thing. And they're just not. So it's like, okay, well, my soul fam and my community and the people around me are growing with me. I love where we're growing to. And I had to look at that and be like, wow, okay, you actually are a stumbling stone. And this over here is a building block. So I think I'm going to go over here. Or I'll take some of these stumbling stones and I'll pick them up and move them over to a building block space. So just in that relationship stance, having parents like I did, where they were just so unavailable. And they also have, I don't like calling them mental illnesses. I have awareness around their mental stability and that they don't have much of that because they didn't get that given to them. So healing myself, simultaneously healing my family, even though they're not showing up to do that, has been really crazy. So not getting to witness like relationships there, not having gosh, what is the word? There wasn't representation of the friendships that you and I have, or the relationship, the friendships that we all have here in this partnership in this room. Even, Julia's here is my friend, and these relationships are cultivating into something totally different that I could never share with my family because the emotional intelligence is lacking, and the healing is lacking. So any old way, the representation is just a really huge deal, because I remember being a kid and my parents never had like just friends that would come over, single friends, or like they just had like other married couples with their kids, and then it was drama and it was like whatever all the time. But I never remember seeing any dynamic like this. And I think it's so healthy for young people to see, for young people to navigate conversations with themselves too, and understand that their community is a safe space. I just feel like there are times that you and I swap spaces where like sometimes you're my little sis, sometimes you're my big sis, sometimes you're my auntie, and sometimes you's my husband. It's just so fun that we get to go like be in the ebb and flow with it. Like I never have to ask you to stand in space with me. I'm never like, I need you to take up this space. You're already present, and then you're just like, I see you, hon, and you can just be as you will be. And we do that. I mean, I think that I do that with you too. Absolutely. And so it's taking out that judgment and that preconceived notion within the relationship too, that there's a burden to the word. I feel like I need you to hold space. I need you to show up. Yeah. And I feel like that becomes burdensome. So then when you're in a space where it's not feeling like copacetic, we use it against each other. Well, I showed up for you. Right. Rather than just being present and just be like, hey, I have a reflection point on a time when you were speaking to this space. Right. Right. So that's just been part of like our fun little platonic space. And unfortunately, some of these words, I'm not like, it's so hard to use some of these words that are just so like buzzword, like toxic and platonic and non-binary.
And that's me. Gaslighting's my favorite. I could write a whole song about it.
Narcissism, all these words that just like, they start losing their meaning the more buzzy they become. And so I really like trying to understand more deeply. Obviously, our conscious is so far beyond our words, and we're trying to catch up with that. But like, I can't explain what you mean to me. And that's why I just want to be present with you, because that's my language. When people are like, actions speak louder than words, actions sometimes are the only thing speaking for me, especially as an autistic person with so many random issues about being awkward. Just you just sitting in space with me in that, and having like being alone together has been everything. So did you have anything you'd like to add to this whole platonic space, and what you feel like it's benefited you seeing yourself more fully?
Well, I think also the biggest thing that you said about like having emotionally unavailable parents is essentially we take on their trauma, because that's how they're like, and that's what they're instilling in us. That's how they're raising us. And then we are now living our life thinking it's our trauma, but really we're healing theirs. And so I think what's so beautiful about our space is that we can acknowledge that, or I can point it out in you. Or you can point it out in me like, that doesn't feel like yours. That feels like something with your mom. Or that doesn't feel like yours. That feels like something with your dad. And then we work through it. And I don't have bonds like that, because it's hard to be in that vulnerable place with anyone, even a romantic partner, And we just do it so freely without being like, can I say something? It's more just like, hey, I love you, but listen to me real quick. Something's happening with you and your mom, and it's not yours.
And you've been so amazing at that, just being so like, because again, your needs, when you were speaking to that space, and you're like, if you don't know what your needs are, and if you have that temperature, then you know that what you're going to say to me, because you haven't had to hide, you haven't had to we don't have to preface how we feel, because we're just in that space with each other. So we get to cut the crap with prefacing everything and be like, I really want to tell you something, but I just don't know. I don't want you to be offended. Yeah. We don't use words like that. We're just like, friend, I can't. And Seriously. We know that just means cool, like whatever,
There's no sugarcoating at all.
No, I ain't going to get diabetes from talking to you.
Well, also, like, I feel like the way that we started our, like, relationship was based on honesty. Like, we didn't just be like, hey, I've seen you around a gypsy. Want to be friends? It was like, I'm mad that we haven't been friends this whole time. So let's change it today, right now. We're going out to eat. We're best friends. We're moving forward with our lives. And
literally how it happened.
That's the beginning of our friendship, really, honestly. No, like, super deep story to it.
But you witnessed me grow so much. There was, like, The space and time when I first initially was walking into Gypsy, I was in a very broken space because my family, I hate the word disown or turning their back. They had literally cast me away. That's what happened. Pushed and cast. I literally had no way of communicating with even my baby sisters at the time. And so Gypsy was such a safe space because it was your mama, your auntie, your grandma, then this vibrant community of weirs and witches and shamans. Like, what? I was like, this is like the fairyland I need. And I just got to go in there and I was more of an observer at the time. Like, they feel safe. I met Lady Speech there. Mm-hmm. I met Dominique Christina, Jay Harris, Rue Black, like all these really dope souls that are flourishing in the community. But we still look at each other and we're like, I saw where you were. Mm-hmm. So proud of where you are now. And I love the observation feeling that Gypsy House gives. It's not a watching and a judgment. It's like, here, let's enhance each other's joy. Let's just be the caretakers of each other's like spirits softly, you know, instead of being abrasive and you should do this and you should do that. It's just a place to be. And you've always provided that. And as much as like, yes, it's your mother and your aunties, you are such a huge pillar of that space for our age.
Oh,
and
yeah, I worked
younger.
there like a majority of the time. That was my first job from the time that I was like 15. I mean, I was there all the time, every day. So if you didn't know who I was, I'm offended. I was the worker. I was the barista.
But you're also you definitely are the entire like flow of energy for understanding this generation. You know what I mean? Because I think there could be like a space where older generational owners can just like have like thinking that we're disrespectful because we don't want to work or these people are this or that or blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And you've just put it into such a different perspective as this brilliant being that you are of what community looks like for this age. But you get to cross over paths. You're friends with older people, younger people, queer people, Indigenous folks.
Yeah, I don't care about any of that stuff. As long as you're a good person and you're trustworthy, then you're a friend to me.
Exactly. And so anyway, I just want to thank you. Just thank you for being. You're just an incredible person and you have really always truly seen me. And so we're just out here growing. But moving along in these relationships that we've been talking about, Lou has been witnessing me. A lot of people in this community have kind of seen the ebb and flow of what has existed as Dani Baby. It was Shug, then it was Street Speaks, and now we Dani, okay. But in that space, speaking to relationships, as a non-binary person, I was finding myself being fetishized a lot by, the space of like, sometimes I'm the only non-binary person a person knows. And I didn't realize that was a thing. I remember that I now know, like I was the first gay person I ever met and I couldn't say it out loud. And then I felt like I was the first non-binary person I ever met. And so still being in these circles, like I will say I don't care a whole lot. And this isn't to diminish anybody else's journey within their gender identity or their gender expression. This is more just for me, is that I don't care a whole lot about the pronouns. I care about the tone. And I think that if we could, like when you're born, you're not understanding words, you're understanding tone, and so you have somebody speaking gently to you or speaking really rude, like scary and hateful at you, you're going to feel that. Like we sense tone more often than not, and body language is really our first language. And we don't really think about that the older that we get. And then we go into these spaces where like, I'm like, okay, well, I'm non-binary. And then somebody asks me what my pronouns are. And it's not a preference. My pronouns are they, them. However, I know who I am. And if somebody else out there misgenders me, that's okay because it was said most of the time in kindness. Approach me in kindness. That's where we're going to learn the most. But I lose people in conversation if they feel that they have offended me because they chose a wrong pronoun. I'm all the pronouns. I don't care. You choose. I know who I am. I don't give a rat's toenail. Because I don't want to lose the conversation and the tone in which we're speaking, because that's the earnest space for me. And so in that earnest space of understanding myself as non-binary and being like, whoa, okay, so now I have this other thing, this other way to identify myself. And I've never really even understood how to identify myself. I'm like, well, this is my name and like I do this. And it was like a job or whatever. But now it's more, I think that we're stepping more into like when people say you're a vibe, like, it's not a flex anymore to be exhausted from overworking yourself. You know,
Right.
it's not a flex anymore to like have, I don't know, like all the money and be so sad and like having to, you know, put it up in a vanity sense. Our ease and our peace, our community and our communication and our body language and the essence of how we accept and love ourselves, how we meet our own needs in our expression, whether that's like our gender, our sexuality, our community, you know, there's so many different levels of expression in that space. And just being allowed the freedom to explore that is the biggest flex.
I agree.
And I love when we hang out and, you know, we're out and people are like, I just love y'all. You just having so much fun. And to us, like we know, like we've worked to get here, but we're at the space where we're enjoying the healing process. Yeah. So we don't really see it. And we're just like being. And then people are like, wow, just witnessing us gave them the permission to be. To have a little bit more of a lofty energy towards them, their own selves. And like weird is the new cool, whatever.
I honestly hate that. It's so like, are you even weird? Because I feel like I'm being made fun of. Like, do you walk around with a tentacle on your finger? Or also like, I don't know, just be yourself. Like, you don't have to label yourself as weird. What does that even mean? It's rude. I hate it.
You know, weird for me, I've taken the power back with that word because like, okay, for instance, like queer used to be a negative word for me growing up. And I don't even know how to like speak without censoring this part, but I'm going to speak exactly what my story was. How about that? When I was younger and I was in 5th grade, I was going to a school in Byers, Colorado, and I'm going to put them on blast because y'all were assholes. And they played this game called Smear the Queer. And I was always the kid that got beat up on the playground. I know the adults witness it. I know my parents seen it. They did. They tried to address it. And they had to hold a school meeting about not like making fun of me because I was in religion where I was wearing like skirts and stuff. I was in a cult, okay? And I looked very different than everybody. And they would play Smear the Queer. They would tie up my skirt over my head. And, you know, like on the playground, I know the teachers saw this shit. You know, the adults were observing this. But any old way, not to put it like in a sob story or anything, it was just that the bullying in the space of like, I was the weird kid. So I had a tough time with the word weird. You know, just like I had a tough time with the word queer. I'm a queer weirdo now. Woohoo! So you take those words back, you put different power and energy into them, and you own them. You know, it's just like I was saying before. And this is what it's like to live vicariously through yourself. You don't have to look at it and be like, oh, they know the answers, and that's how I'm going to go about it to reclaim my power. Only you can reclaim your power. Only you can. I know there's a lot of self-help gurus out there, and we got this whole new age stuff going on, which has a lot of spiritual psychosis in it. And a lot of spiritual bypassing, and it's really fucking gross, and I don't like that. Anyway, I'm not here to be like, this is what you need to do, meditate and get within yourself. It's like, take back your power in just the tone and the words that you use. Start looking at what they really mean when you're saying them. If I say something is weird, it means that I absolutely love it, and I think it's incredible. Whereas somebody else says the word weird, and it could have a trauma response like it did for me back in the day. So, you know, taking those stumbling stones and creating them into building blocks by taking those words that, yes, they hurt me once, but I redefined what they meant for me. You know, like even when I was first coming out and navigating the whole queer space, I identified as a lesbian because I didn't know that I was non-binary. There weren't words like that for us. And so the word lesbian or that's not gender, sorry.
Term?
Yes, I have such a tough time with that one. I know. But lesbian was like such a word that didn't make sense for me. I was like, I'm not a lesbian. And it was always because of how it was said when I was younger, you know, like, oh, they're a lesbian. Now it's like, yeah, they're a lesbian, you know, but I had such a tough time with that word because it was said in secret spaces and in condescending and judgment places. And I wasn't that too, obviously, but I didn't like, if I heard a word and it was said in a certain tone, I was like, I'm not that. But if I heard a word and it was like in a lofty way, like, oh, you're just such a happy kid, I'd be like, yeah. So I could mask to those words based on what they were. So not growing up, and this is all how it ties in, growing up and not having the emotional, intelligent parents that I needed, being in a cult, being severely bullied, being already like, you know, told that I was queer when I had no idea. I got blamed and ridiculed in church for I was being accused of being a lesbian. And I literally had never even kissed anybody at that point. I had no idea. I didn't, but that was the number one thing, fear mongering and fear based in church that they could do to us was say lesbian and gay in those tones. So if you were not obeying under the use of authority or heeding to what the pastor was saying, or, that there's a young man that they want you to date in church because the Lord showed them, junk like that I was I just didn't know how to identify myself in anything because everybody else was busy telling me who I was. Nobody was asking me, who are you? And so in that emotional unavailability from my parents, my autism was overlooked until I was 37. I figured that out for myself. My ADHD was overlooked until I was 37. I have PTSD. I've always I have some other things that I'm not ready to talk about right now, but all of that as a result of how the words were used, the tone that they were used in. I've had to work through that so much because I didn't like the word queer. I didn't like the word weird. And now I absolutely love it. And so we've taken that space back within those words, getting to be, around you, Lou, where you have also gone through some things within your own identity. And we don't have to speak so heavy to that right now, but in your own identity within your community and your family dynamic that I know has put you in a space of why is everybody telling me who I am and how I should be based on how you identify?
Right.
So outside of your sexual identity and just being a person in the community, what has that, can I ask what's that been like for you?
With people telling me who I am?
Yeah. Wow.
Well, I also feel like it's a day-to-day process with me even figuring out who the fuck I am. I don't have all the answers right away. But I don't know, now that we're talking about this, you kind of just gave me a new idea of when you brought up the family situation, how we're constantly healing but just healing other people's traumas for them when they don't want to deal with it. Literally the experience that I went through this year, and I try to take on their bullshit and their trauma and label it as my own and be wait, who am I? Wait, am I mixed? Am I what am I? Am I a Black person? What? And now I'm just no, I've never even considered myself one or the other. I'm just a human being that has two separate racial parents, and I'm not going to adopt their insecurity because they're uncomfortable with what they are and label it as my own. But also I'm not going to I just hate putting myself in a box. I'm straight, I'm interracial or biracial. Is it interracial? I'm biracial. My mom owns a coffee shop. Those things have nothing to do with me. If you you guys, some of you guys probably know who I am, but maybe you don't. And I'm hoping that stays that way. You can just take what I'm saying and then create your own belief of who you think I am without seeing me or knowing the little small minute details of do you have a college degree? And do you like men or women? Or it's I hate it.
Right. All of these questions that first of all, are pretty invasive upon getting to know somebody. And we didn't even do that with each other. We were just we're hanging out. And then all of a sudden we started discovering things about each other.
The biggest thing for me was what's your sign? Because that holds a lot of weight. So what's your sign and when's your birthday?
Leo, baby.
You're a Cleo. You are a Cleo. It's fine. We'll go with Leo today.
So I love what you said about how, just you don't have to identify even within the community with our parents' trauma. I grew up in a small town in Wyoming, 54 people. And not only was this small town it had a bar in it that my trashy family on my dad's side owned. I'm saying garbage. And this town was divided by Highway 85. And on the west side of the highway was my house and two other houses. And then on the other side was the town. I was literally divided by the highway, and my parents wouldn't let me cross the highway to go hang out with the neighborhood kids. So I was super alienated. I was just out there. And so it was that whole story, you ride the bus for an hour and a half in the morning to just get to school. It was that kind of dynamic is how I grew up. So the representation of anything that I seen there was nothing. I didn't know I was witnessing racism. I didn't know I was witnessing bigotry. I had no idea because what was in my face was family feuding. Okay. My mom and her side of the family is Mexican and Spanish. And my dad's side of the family is like German and French, and they're people. And it's just, I didn't know until I got older that my grandma on my dad's side was actually using racial slurs when she was talking to me and was absolutely a very racist person. So was my grandfather on my dad's side. Then on my mom's side, we had this like really on the outside looking loving family. They had 12 kids, but they grew up. My mom grew up so poor as a, Mexican Spanish person in a primarily like, it was all white people around us, and they had like the ancient money of farming. And that's all my mom had. There was no representation of even her culture there and my grandparents' culture. And there was also a lot of mental and physical and sexual abuse on my mom's side. So there was not a win-win here by any means. What I witnessed and what I went through was normal. That was the representation I had. I didn't know, I had no idea that there were people like me out in the world. And I probably still wouldn't even have known that had our family not moved at some point, because it's still, I have people from that past life that they're like, wow, you've changed so much. And they're literally still living in the house that they grew up in. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But in order to be more myself or to find home in me, even though it is me, to find it in myself, I needed to see something that represented me as well. And I wasn't finding that there. And so growing up in a cult where you're told exactly who to be, we were like everything. My whole life was just like everybody putting their insecurities on me. They were living vicariously through me. My parents got to hide their marital issues, their own personal issues in me. They got to hide it because I looked like a happy kid. I was hiding all of the abuse secrets. And I remember telling my dad, I was on my bunk bed and I was like, Dad, something inappropriate is happening. And nothing ever came of that. Nothing changed at all. So the older I got, I remember being like, word is bond. If I say, in fact, sometimes I'm not even going to say it. I'm going to think it and just do it. And then my actions actually are going to be the speaking volume here. But as a young person, when you're trying to like navigate what it is to like be, and all your teachers are like, you can be whatever you want to be when you grow up. And then they watch you get bullied on the playground, or they watch you get bullied for being in a cult. And none of the kids understand that. I was in a class of, it was 12 kids, me and 12 kids. So the minute that I entered this cult, it was literally a 24-hour period. I came home, or I left one morning and I was like a normal kid. I was like wearing this cute little pantsuit to school and having fun with my friends. I get off the bus. My mom is burning our clothes and smashing the TV for everybody to see because, like, why not? And
it needed extra. She needed to give them more. Like, she needed to give them more.
They needed it. Fuel. So I get dropped off. My mom is burning my clothes. I go to school the next day looking like motherfucking Laura Ingalls, wilding out. I didn't know how to explain this to people. God told my mom that I was a sinner at 8 years old and that I needed to change my ways. So I'm wearing a skirt and a turtleneck in 85-degree weather. None of the students in my class understand that. The teachers don't, nobody has ever seen this before. And so here's my perspective, having wow, these kids didn't understand. So they just get to bully. There were literal class meetings where the teachers basically were like, we can't help you. We can't help that these kids are going to bully you because you're so weird. It's just so different. And when people don't know different, they make fun of it and you're just going to get tough skin. I had grown people telling me this stuff. And then not only that, I was never even part of the discussion. They were just talking to me about what they believed was going to happen and not even remedying something that would bring a remedy to the situation, that we shouldn't be getting treated this way. So at a young age, to loop this all in together is that the emotional unavailability, the emotional unintelligence from the adults that were around in my realm that I know that they know, not because energetically I just assumed that they would. But because I fucking told them, I used my mouth and the words at my capacity at the time and the tone, and I told them. And my tone made them uneasy. Stop crying. You'll get tough skin. My words, nope. I got to circumnavigate your wisdom around these words. And they actually mean this. Me being available to, like I tell them something and then nothing takes place. Nothing has been a really tough situation. And yes, I have a space for my dad in my life. I'm working on having space for my mom, but it's a very small little space. It's not taking up my identity anymore. I had to teach myself. I had to heal myself, and I'm going to continually be healing myself. And I don't want to always be triggered because of the lack of awareness that somebody has, like my parents. I know that you lack awareness around it, so I don't want to hold conversation with you in these spaces. And then people are like, well, is there really room for them in your life? Yes, because I want to learn what not to do.
Right.
And so I know even for you were going through some family stuff too. And those identifiers, like whether it's a town of 54 people and a little cult life in a school out in the country to being in the city where, you have a family dynamic and the community knows you and your parents are maybe not in agreement on how you are going to exist in the world. What has that felt like for you being more in the city and in the community you are?
That's such a loaded question. I feel like my parents they didn't raise me together. They did really good at co-parenting. They really didn't rarely fight about anything besides my hair, which that also goes into the shit that I'm dealing with this year that I'm just like, I'll fucking cut it off. I'll cut it off, I swear. But no, my parents actually weren't extremely religious. My dad grew up Baptist and my mom grew up Christian, but then she became a little more conscious and aware and started raising me to be more of a spiritual person. So I think the hardest thing that I had a difficulty with was my belief system in God. And I got so fucking sick of the arguments between like both my parents telling me like, on this week, you could be like a spiritual person. We're going to talk about Buddha. But then on the weekends, we're going to go and like talk about Jesus and like give money to this guy who owns a fucking nice ass mansion up in Cherry Hills with initials in the bottom of his pool while we're like figuring out what we're going to eat for dinner. I was just sick of it. So 13, I was like, you're not telling me what to do and you're not telling me what to do. I'm just going to do it myself. It was very difficult. It did put me in like a weird space of depression for like a long time. But growing up, I actually wouldn't, like in the place that I am now, I wouldn't take back anything that I really went through, whether that was in my childhood or just like my early adult-ish years, because the experiences did shape me. I don't wear them as a characteristic. Like I'm not going to walk around telling people like about things that happened to me sexually or things that happened to me in my childhood, because it doesn't fucking matter. But it has shaped my mind and created more growth and learning curves for me, to where I can navigate differently now moving forward. And I always have those cards to reflect back to and think about those moments. I don't really have any regrets I'm sorry about your life.
No, I mean, and it's really interesting sometimes to be able to look at our lives. Also, thank you for sharing that though, because we've witnessed it in each other, and I've seen the gravity that it does have, but I've also seen you navigate that really brilliantly. Yeah. And it's, again, representation. You are giving us a representation of what it can look like. Not saying like this is what it should look like, but for everybody it's different. But this is what it can look like. I think one of those spaces is that I'm recognizing is that I'm coming out of my nurture and I'm entering my nature. And the reason I say that is my nurture was really traumatic. The way I was nurtured. We look at nurture like, oh, it's this really beautiful word and a mother should be nurturing, but nurture is literally what you received that makes and aids you in thinking the way that you do. And so my nurture which is so opposite of my nature, which y'all know me now and you're like, Dani baby's just out there being a Leo with your crazy ass self, and like people are like, what? You're not I struggle with like certain confidence things and just my identifiers. Like I really I'm a data collector. I don't see red flags and people are like, bitch, that was dumb. Like I seen that a mile away. And I'm like, well, I had to learn.
People do that all the time. So when they call it out, we already had this discussion.
Yeah.
That's judgment. Like you being like, I told you so. How did you not see that?
Yeah.
Like your boyfriend's beating you. Like go back in your house and be quiet.
Yep. See, okay, you get that. So my nurture was abuse. And I didn't have that space where I got to be like, I got to understand myself as a powerful being, because in Christianity, in the cult realm, you're conditionally loved, right? So do this in order to be loved. And then it's like God sees everything, and cult life is just like such a, like, if something bad happens, the devil did it. If something is going on well in your life, then God's doing it. You never get any credit for yourself. And the kingdom of God is in us.
Right.
As the ancient scriptures that were kept out of the Bible anyway. But we are that. We are gods ourselves. We're navigating this. Yes, that's also why I be loving the social realms right now, because people be calling out these pastors, and it is brilliant. And I love it, because that spiritual psychosis and that spiritual, that whole realm, that bypassing is disgusting, and I'm not doing it anymore. Bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people, and that's, how are we defining good and bad now? Like, who's in charge of the moral compass? So for myself, stepping out of my nurture and what felt really egregious on my spirit, and like I had no confidence. I didn't even think myself to study to know myself. Like, I didn't know what that meant. I would just let everybody else tell me. And then I started stepping into my nature. And that's where you come into play. That's where living vicariously through myself exists. That's where I just get to be in my community. We're unmasking. We're in parallel play. We're stimming. We're doing all the things. And however people want to define it, go for it. I know what it resonates for me. And this is my nature. My nature is to be this lighthearted energy, but my nurture was really, really bad. And it was really, really hard to get out of that. So taking from my nurture space and those stumbling stones and bringing them over to build in that with, my building blocks has been so essential for my life. And so I know I just like talking about all the topics. We talked about platonic intimacy and all these relationships, and really to narrow it all down is a relationship with ourselves and living vicariously through yourself. Experience yourself being experienced. You're the only one that's ever going to even understand what that means. And if you don't have the words for it, then stim it out, dance it out. If you don't even have the moves for it, then just smile a bunch and scream. I don't know. Do what you will. But yeah, I don't know anybody out there. Like, again, I'm not one of these people that my purpose isn't to be on here to tell people what to do, to tell sob stories or anything. This is just a space of reflection. And I never heard anybody speak to these spaces when I was younger or even older. They're like, not ageism here. There's an older generation that needs to hear these things. And whether you want to judge it or not, or you want to have, some sort of like frustration towards these new age kids not wanting to work themselves to death, or do you think that we're stupid and because of these, like it's either man or a woman and blah, 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 blah. Like, honey, you're just gonna that world is ending. I'm not asking you to keep up. I'm just asking for you to reflect a little bit, because the young ones that come up, we can make time for you or not based on your willingness to grow, to learn and heal. And don't look at us like, wow, you just left us back here. You felt abandoned and all of that. When it's time to move and shift and grow, that's what we're going to do. And you can do that with your community. But if you're in these relationships that are truly not, they aren't seeing you, there are relationships that they don't actually see you. Right. I was in some love bonds that they didn't see me.
I just have to touch on that. There's a quote that I just posted on Instagram, and it was people will only understand you based on the capacity of their perception. And so seeing who you are and you being this person, if I'm still in a state of trauma, or I'm still dealing with old shit, I'm not going to be able to understand, what do you mean just be? What do you mean you're living vicariously through yourself? I don't, I literally cannot comprehend it, because that's not working with my perception of reality right now.
Exactly. And I was in that space for a really long time.
I agree, me too.
And I'm still in that space sometimes. Again, that's my nurture, which is triggers. And that's another space super quick to touch on is conscious love. I've had a really difficult time coming out of the spaces of nurture where my love was conditional, and that it was almost like love wasn't a controllable thing.
Right.
Like, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you because I love you.
Right.
Love was just like, I didn't like how love felt, you know? So like now, and like, it's in so many different forms, but now in the conscious love that I'm entering, like I'm literally growing in a conscious love situation right now. Y'all will find out or you won't. I don't know. Stay tuned.
It's exciting.
But Lou has really witnessed this. Like, there has been a really interesting dynamic of relationships that have come in and out of my world recently. And I'm in a palindrome of where I don't have to sit with things that don't serve me any longer, like relationships too. Like, there was a space where I had a few people that we were in a platonic intimacy, and even those can come to an end because this person couldn't see me. I'm not worried about what I do for a person. Like, yes, it's going to be reciprocated and sometimes it's not, or I won't do things unless I have the energy and the space and the ability to do that because my cup is running over. But if it's any bit empty, we're not doing that. But when it gets turned on me, then I start seeing like, you don't see me. You actually don't see my heart. You don't understand that the way that you think love isn't how I love. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that we need to try to continue understanding it. There really is a space where these people don't need to be in your lane anymore. It's okay. They're really not in your lane. And I think that we have a tough time. Even there's a song and it's just like, I'm not good at letting people go. I was not good at letting people go for a long time. And now I'm asking them to let me go. And so I think just getting to be like, entering conscious love and starting to really look and navigate at what nurture versus nature is in your world and how that actually really encompasses love for you, how you're able to love, how you're able to receive love, how you witness love. All these things are such different defining, spaces. So anyway, I just wanted to bring a little bit more awareness to why I want to just hold these little discussions. I don't know who's going to hear it. And I care about those that are. And if you're resonating, if you're growing up in a teeny little town and there isn't representation, honey, I'm here. I didn't have representation either. And I'm the only one out of my town, out of 54 people. So I know the numbers can be low. But I just want to, just enhance and encourage that joy space within ourselves and that love space and that bond that we can have with ourselves. And it's okay to be a queer weirdo. I'm here for it. It's okay to be a straight weirdo. I don't care. But really, it's very rare that I would assume anybody to be straight. I'm just playing, sort of. Anyway. So that's what I got for y'all today. I absolutely just feel this sense of, it's like overwhelming gratitude and love for what is happening here. And I don't believe that I would be in this chair today if it wasn't for you sitting next to me, Lou. That is the truth. You just coming in and putting that little elbow out and saying, this is a wing and you're under it. And just holding space, well, being present. You've always been present. And I just really, really want you to know how much I love and appreciate you. And, Ty's over here in the corner. He's just being quiet over here. I just want to thank you so much for your spirit. You're a very earnest and authentic person. And it just really encourages me to continue walking in that space for myself. And it's an honor to be around both of you in this love bond that you have going on in whatever space that's going to be. But I see you as individuals as well. Like, I have a relationship with you, Lou, and I'm cultivating a relationship here. And then we have our little group relationship. And it's such an honor to get to grow with you. Thank you for being here, Ty. And as always, we got to shout out Julius over here. This one right here. He's doing his thing.
Can I just say I love you and I'm so proud of you and I'm grateful that you're starting this and you're going to touch so many people, me included, maybe physically or maybe just through their earballs. But I love it and I'm excited and I'm here for it.
Oh, thank you. We're doing it. And we're going to keep doing, we're actually here in the next week or two and Ty's camera is ready to go. We're going to start normalizing some platonic intimate photo shoots. We're going to take pictures with our friends and hang them in our houses and start showing representing what it looks like to have love bonds outside of it just being like the traditional marital looking thing. So any old way, just, be on the lookout for that. If there's anything that I could say to encourage myself today, because I'm not here to encourage other people, I'm really talking to myself. If I could encourage myself today, it would be to authentically and earnestly continue creating in love. Stay well, and we'll talk soon.
Yo, it's Julius, and I just made traveling easier with the motorized scooter suitcase. Let me say it again. Motorized scooter suitcase. Yeah, that's right. The luggage has got a built-in electric motor. So the suitcase, I can ride it and glide through the airport or the train station, through downtown, and it all fits in the overhead storage bin. No more crowded terminals trying to say, excuse me, y'all gonna see me gliding through there. I can hop in and off the light rail like it's no problem. I'm not struggling to carry these heavy ass bags with podcast equipment anymore. All you gotta do is just click the link in the episode description that says Smart Suitcase. Click Smart Suitcase and see what I'm talking about. I'm telling y'all, it's going to change the way, if you're traveling, this is going to change everything. Click the link. Let's go.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you or your company are looking to jump into the podcast world, now is the time. The Plug Agency is here to connect you to the full power of podcasting. You just record and leave the rest to us. The people are listening and want to hear from you. theplug-agency.com. That's theplug-agency.com. Click the link in the episode description for an exclusive offer.